Thanks everyone for coming. Welcome to Behind the Billboard podcast. Thank you all for coming. A couple of familiar faces from last night. Sebastian in the middle there, bit of a shout out. We had some pizza with him. We're hoping Andy Bird might turn up at the gate, maybe Paul Shearer. But anyway, thank you everybody for coming. For people that don't know us, I'm Hugh. This is Dan. Ow, that's Jon. Jon's the brains behind most of the technology. And with a podcast that discovers the stories behind the greatest billboards of all time. But we do actually also do projections and stunts and happenings, but Behind the Billboard had a better ring to it than things like Behind the Projection. So we're called Behind the Billboard, but we do everything that's out of home.
Yeah, we've been going 2.5 years as a podcast. Hugh and I started it. Originally it was going to be a book called The Great Outdoors. Hugh and I would meet up once a month for a coffee and start talking about the greatest campaigns of all time, what was happening right now, what's happening in the industry, where it's going. And one day we were just talking over and we said we should record ourselves talking about this stuff. And it became the podcast. So obviously over the pandemic, we've been recording in our living rooms and in the office and then finally back in the studio as well, which is a good thing. So yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. I think...
Sorry. Got some visual stuff going on here. That's us. Yeah. These are our previous guests.
And so yeah, we've had some of the world's best people and advertisers and photographers and people who work in our industry from a strategy side, media owners, all talking about how great outdoor is and how great outdoor campaigns can be. Today, though, we're here on the beach for our live recording.
Thanks for coming again. Just as a reminder, you could have actually today been at the Palais. Today, right now, there's leveraging machine learning and augmented reality for experiential digital commerce. But we're very pleased you came here instead. This might be a bit more interesting than that. So we think we made the right decision. So we only got an hour, and our lovely guests are here, so we should shut up really bit and just quickly introduce them and get going. So first up, Daniel Fisher, ECD Ogilvy for Dove and Unilever worldwide. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
Daniel's got to go at 12:30, so we're going to go ahead and direct quite a lot of the questions to all of them. How was last night?
It was good. It was, heavy.
Yeah, yeah. I could tell by the way you dropped all your headache.
Good sign.
But we thought there was obviously the results from last night. We thought reverse selfie might have picked up some outdoor, but it didn't.
It didn't.
Yeah. Should we leave it there or?
You could ask Sanjiv.
Yes. Well, maybe we should introduce our panel properly. So next up, Dan, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, we have Keka Morelle from Wunderman Thompson, Sao Paulo with us. Keka and I were on the jury together in 19, so we've got lots of stories to tell about, and Carlos is here in the audience. I saw Davide earlier on, about how they lock us up in a cave to look at all of the amazing work, and Sanjiv's going to no doubt give us some of that insight as well. So Keka, how's your Cannes experience been so far?
Thank you for this invitation to having me here. It's a pleasure to talk about Billboard, because I love this media and I believe a lot in this media. And thank you very much to be here. And Cannes, it's been amazing because we are together. It's very hot and Brazil is cold. And I'm super happy to be here and talk with these both amazing guys and creative people about this media.
And last but not least, we've got a familiar face to the podcast. He was episode 14, I think, of our podcast.
First one in the pandemic?
First one in the pandemic, yeah. We were in the first lockdown. So we've got Sanjiv Mistry, who was also, as I said, he was on the jury this year, and he's ECD at McCann London. So
right.
How has Cannes been for you?
I've hardly had any sunshine. They do, you're right, absolutely right. They lock us away in a basement, a highly chilled basement for a good few days. And you come out blinking into the light like a sort of, prisoner of war or something. Beard having grown a little bit in that time. A few more gray hairs appearing as well. But a good experience overall. Really, really good.
We because we only have an hour and Daniel has to leave at 12:30, like I said, we're going to start with you, Daniel, and just say, I suppose I'm aware. So I'm aware. Do you guys obviously know what the results were from last night? I presume because you were there. So did you feel it was the right award? For people who don't know, the Adidas Liquid Billboard won the Grand Prix, and then there were various other awards. Not many for England, has to be said. One bronze. What did you think, Daniel, of the?
I thought the winner was interesting, actually. I think I'm all for rewarding experimentation with the medium, and I think obviously Sanjiv, one of my favorite ads of all time outdoors, the survival billboard. I do like it when people take the medium and try to push the boundaries of what an outdoor execution is. I think, I actually wasn't familiar with that campaign, so I checked it out after the awards last night, and it's really interesting. For people that don't know, they built a billboard in Dubai, which is actually a swimming pool, wasn't it? And it was to encourage women to swim in it to overcome the stigma of overcome the stigma of people.
I think one of the reasons the cultural, it actually won in the cultural insight kind of subcategory. And it's because there's such a stigma around women kind of showing their bodies and swimming and kind of, I guess, having a sense of body confidence in that region. But one of the reasons it was a standout piece for us as a jury was we saw a lot of purpose-driven work, as has been the kind of dominant trend, in the last decade or so. But this was also, wasn't just purpose, it was a particular cultural insight, and it was actually product-driven as well. There was they were launching a new range of inclusive swimwear for women in the Middle East. And so it was a product demo. It was a celebration of kind of body confidence. Real women it wasn't just sort of celebrities and influencers swimming in the billboard. It was real women who got to kind of show themselves off and become part of the medium, which we thought was lovely and interesting and
can you
iconic, really.
Can you talk a little bit about the extension of the campaign as well? From an outdoor perspective, it wasn't just this one liquid billboard, was it? There was an extension.
It felt thought through. They could have just built the thing, stopped there and said, wow, we've made something beautiful, iconic, and walked away. And inevitably, if that had happened, a jury would have said, yeah, but how many people would have gone past that one site and really seen it? So they live streamed, every woman who swam in the pool was live streamed to some of the biggest digital billboard sites around the region. So further exposure to those people, but also every participant also got their own individual poster as well. So it's a kind of outdoor upon outdoor upon outdoor with a solid big global brand and selling a product at its core.
It feels like our very
really
small picture there doesn't quite do it justice.
Go watch the case study.
Yeah, I mean, these are all the kind of contenders that we thought. We were sort of semi-chuffed that 2 or 3 of these made the list. Pepsi, Adidas, I would say, but as actual winners, that was the big one. I'm going to go back to Daniel for a minute because I know you got to go.
Thank you.
And we're going to ask a question about the balance of work now, because obviously the last 2 years we've not been here in person. It's obviously very nice to all be here in person, even though we're sweating like buggery. It's lovely to be here and see everyone. But do you feel like, and again, Sanjiv, if chip in as well, and Keka as well, but if it's like, do you feel like we've now, if you look at some of the work here, like Pepsi, chillboards, the swimming, those are nothing to do with the pandemic. They're just pure great ideas. Whereas last year, 2 Grand Prix, Heineken shutter ads, Dove, obviously Courage is Beautiful. Do you feel we're now moving out?
Absolutely. I think last year was always going to reflect the time we're in, and I think that was the right thing for the juries to do. I think it was an opportunity to reward all the great creativity that came out of quite challenging circumstances. I think now, although we're still sort of semi in this COVID is still around, but we're starting to see the work returning to normal. And I think it's great that we're starting to reward people pushing the boundaries again, rewarding innovation like the Grand Prix last night. I think it's great to start to get back on that track.
There was a good question we had last night because we were saying, is it going to get back to normal? And I likened it a bit like to having kids. So when I had my kids, I kept saying to my mates, I just want to get back to be a bit normal before I had kids, because that doesn't exist, that place. But is it a bit like that now? You're kind of going, it's never going to be back to normal because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
So it is a new normal. Sorry, that's a bit of a corny thing to say. The new normal.
I think there is. I do think, I hope anyway, that that normal will gradually return to full normal. I hope that that new normal will become like the old normal, and that we'll start seeing work that is more than just a reaction to the time we're living in.
And Dan, just before you go, and because we're going to come back to the pandemic question a bit with Keka, but just before you go, just going back to the UK side of things, and UK creativity. You know, obviously, based on the results last night, it doesn't. I don't think it really reflects what's happening in the UK from a creative perspective.
No.
The question is kind of where do you think we go next, and for next year, and the work that's coming through right now, is it?
Well, I think Cannes is always unpredictable, and sometimes the work you think is going to win doesn't get through. I think Cannes is also, it's a certain kind of work that makes it through, and I think it's got to appeal to a sort of a global audience of juries, and I think certain work that we love in the UK doesn't always make it to the global stage, and I think that's the combination of juries not being familiar with the brands, not being familiar with the insights, and also sometimes there is a slight element of random and I think sometimes things that you don't expect to win walk away with Grand Prix, things that you expect at Grand Prix don't actually get even the bronze. So I think there is an element of that, and I think maybe last night there was an element of that.
Quick question, and so just on that, and I'm sorry, keep going to Dan, but it's because you got to go. Do you think that it's a terrible thing to say, but what are the tips then? So if you're listening to this either here or in a couple of days, and you're like a budding young creative or any creative, wanting to win. I read some fact like 1.7% of entries wins, which is pretty, that's a pretty small gene pool to be in. Are there any tips? Can you give tips on what does win at Cannes? I mean, or is that ridiculous because there's no...
My biggest tip would be don't try to win a Cannes. Don't try to win an award. I think we've all been through it, and I think earlier in my career, I used to write work with an award in mind, and that work would never win awards. And I think the work that does win awards is when you're not thinking about it. Right. And like last year with Courage is Beautiful, we actually at the outset agreed not to enter it into awards because we felt to enter it would just sort of sully the whole thing, because it felt almost sacred that we're using these images of these nurses and doctors who were literally saving our lives. And we felt, look, maybe we shouldn't enter into awards. Yeah. And then after a conversation with the client, we decided to do it, but we didn't write that work even thinking about.
No, you can see
a single accolade.
It's not like that. And actually, if you have a client backing you, that's. I mean, you can clearly see you've got a brilliant relationship with them.
Yeah.
It's outstanding work.
And I think that's the other thing. I think don't try to write work that you're hoping to win an award with, and also try and do stuff that's going to actually impact the client's business rather than doing something that just sort of feels like an indulgent piece of stuff that you like. I think juries are getting more and more sort of wise to that. And look, I mean, I certainly, when I'm on a jury, I kind of look for work that is genuinely impacting the business that we're in. And I think, we are in the business of trying to grow our clients. And I think you see a lot of stuff that feels, it's really nice, it's really clever, beautifully art directed, it's really well crafted. Is it going to actually, what was the point of it? What impact were they trying to achieve? And I think if you're doing work that is genuinely having an impact on the client's bottom line or reputation, I think that's a good start. And I think, as I say, don't try and do stuff with the jury in mind.
Keka, as I said, we were on the jury together, along with some of the guests in the audience here. We talk about the entries that look like they're trying to win awards. Do you think they're easy to spot when you're in the jury room, when you're looking through case study films and looking at people's work and them telling their story?
Yeah, I thought very interesting what you said, and for me, I will give another perspective because I'm Latina. I'm from Brazil. And after 2 years in this situation, we in South America, this scenario didn't end yet. And we try to connect brands with the society in a real, true way. And this is my perspective all the time. I try to find the real point of view of the people and how the people will understand the brand activation. And I don't know, every time that I'm in a jury session, I try to give to this world perspective, region perspective, because I believe that nowadays we are in a moment of time that there's no more just one storytelling that talks about world, and we need to see. And I love the Grand Prix, for example, because when a brand like Adidas won a Grand Prix with some region culture perspective, for me it's super important, and I believe in these connections, and I try to give to the table every time that I'm in like these opportunities to talk about new perspectives, new scenarios, new realities that represent the world today.
I think the Adidas is really, it's a kind of, I find it a gentle winner because it's not obvious. People weren't sharing it loads, but the more you look at it, when I listen to you talking about it, how it folds out and it becomes empowering for each individual, but then it's also hardwired to the brand. It's not, it's kind of a cause-related thing, but it's also, it's very clever in a way. It's multi-dimensional. And was that why it got the big prize, do you think? Or is that why it was so popular, do you feel? Sorry, either of you.
I think so. It stood out amongst all the contenders for so many reasons. For all of the ones you just described, that it was a kind of confluence of brand and purpose and product. For the fact that it was incredibly well crafted and thought through, and just that visual felt like the kind of thing that would kind of make your hair stand on end a little bit. You know, it's a little bit goosebump inducing. It was a real favorite amongst the jury right from the very beginning. I think it was so to kind of talk a little bit about the sort of judging process and how we kind of get to it. So there were about 2,000 entries in the outdoor category. Wow. to give you some sense of scale. And because there are so many, there's a shortlist jury and then there's a final jury. And the final jury members are also part of shortlist juries, but everything operates remotely. So you sort of, by the time you get to the final stage of judging in Cannes, you're sort of confronted with a shortlist that nobody in the room has yet agreed upon. And you spend most of the first day weeding through it, discussing it. There's a bit of an opportunity at the end to sort of rescue some work that might have fallen between the cracks a little bit. But to be honest, I think, you know, the kind of hive mind, the swarm intelligence of 20-something odd different top creatives from around the world, all looking at the work individually, got the Adidas piece onto the shortlist, I want to say 6-7 times, something like that, in various categories. And weirdly, it wasn't one of those. For other pieces, we were very, very strict about, you know, being clear that if this doesn't quite fit in this subcategory, kick it out, because we want to award pure out-of-home thinking. Yeah. But this piece, every subcategory it had been entered into was legitimate. Yeah. It absolutely did fit. So in the end, when it came to, you know, the gold and the Grand Prix, in the end, it was a relatively easy decision because it just ticked so many boxes.
Well, because some campaigns get entered and you think, oh, you're pushing your luck, putting it in there. It's not that. Exactly. I mean, just from a personal point of view, I love swimming. So whenever I see that image, it makes me feel happy because there's a freedom and a liberation about being in water. It's beautifully graphic. It makes me think, it's called Liquid Billboard, right? And there's a thing, isn't there? Like, you just have to explain your idea in literally 3 words. Yeah. Survival billboard. It's like, it's so important because we got so little time, but then you can delve into what I loved watching the film. We talked about it just literally before we came on air saying, well, it's not actually a billboard there. They built the billboard and we're going, so is that good? Is that bad? But what they did is they did it, you know, and now it's there and it's living and we're debating it. And I love the fact that I love a world first, you know, the world's first liquid billboard. I think that's great.
I think the other thing about it is I think that the stuff that stands out in the jury room is a key visual, right? So this is an image of a billboard. It's very clearly an Adidas billboard, and there's something happening on it. So it draws you in straight away, which is what out of home does. If you see a billboard out there when you're driving, when you're walking around, it's achieved its goal. It's when you delve deeper into this project that you see they become posters, and there's user generated content in there, and it can live beyond. And it was live streamed out onto another digital billboard. I think we're tending to see that with campaigns that live beyond the billboard that win.
I mean, advertising always wants to draw a kind of. You always want to connect with your audience. I think there's probably no better way of connecting with your audience than literally having your audience participate in becoming part of your key visual, to use your phrase. In the case of the Adidas billboard, I think that it just felt. Everyone in the room when we watched it, the more we watched, just felt happier and happier when you see it.
It's a shame we haven't got the case study here. We should try and put it up.
I encourage everyone to watch it if you haven't already. Yeah.
We'd all love a little swim now in that billboard. I just wanted to ask Keka again, or both of you, was there other work you felt was under awarded, either from your country or from the shortlist? I mean, we've put up some more work here.
I will not say that.
Well, no, just
the jury member.
we won't blame you, Sanjiv. Don't worry.
Because I'm not put you in your situation.
We were quite surprised. We saw the shortlist, and we had our own, ones in our mind. We thought we'd do really well. I just come off a jury in Britain, Creative Circle, and it was very clear there was 3 winners, big winners.
Yeah.
Which I can't say. God, I nearly just said them. That would have been awful. But none of them made any of this. So clearly, do you feel like there was any work here you thought, that should have got more? Like, I don't know whether there's a lot of KFC and Burger King I loved. I mean, I love this one down at the bottom, the Burger King.
I miss the fresh and new ideas that we haven't seen yet now. I think always kindness, it's an opportunity to show new markets, new perspective, and but I love what is there, and I just think it's a short list. I think maybe the Cannes try to give more relevance to the award, and there's a few awards than they used to have, and I agree with that.
As in making it more exclusive to win one. It's like
we need to give less pieces but better ones, and I totally agree. And talking about what you said before, and I think this is an example of good use of a billboard now. This is a start of the conversation, and then you can evolve in others' media. You find something, and then you connect to the content behind the billboard. And this ecosystem that we can create nowadays with outdoor ideas, and use these outdoors to connect and create conversations. It's a super relevant tool to the brands.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we presided over the Nike won the Grand Prix that year, which was originally a tweet, and it's well-known story as it wasn't originally a billboard, but it did win in the billboard in the outdoor category. And we talk about other winners like the survival billboard. It's a standout special build. It's a billboard. It's living out of home. And I think if you can use the medium in interesting ways, whether that is connecting, gamifying it, or if it's using mobile or using some sort of context, like the Ramadan piece here that was done in the UK, I thought was fantastic. And it just used the day and night. It's empty plates, and then at nighttime the plates were filled up. Yeah. There's some interesting stuff like that that's happening in local markets that doesn't necessarily translate to a global audience.
Yeah. We have a client. We work a lot with Netflix in Brazil, and interesting to see that our role to Netflix is creative media, and then every title that we need to work, we need to build a conversation behind the title. And then to Stranger Things, we did, for example, a station, a subway station to Stranger Things. And for the city, this station is now like a museum of art because it's a lot of lines. The people want to go there and take pictures, and I believe in this. We need to create a context between brands and people.
Yeah, I love your Stranger Things Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware. Keka did was part of this campaign in Brazil where I don't know how many Stranger Things fans we have here, but in one of these series, the tin was crushed
11.
by 11, and then
Just with mine.
just to remind. But then they made it available, a crushed tin you could actually buy and drink. So is there less Coke in there? Maybe that was quite good for the client. I just want to go to Sanjiv again and ask, was there anything that came close? So we've talked about the liquid billboard quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Was there anything kind of circling the airport that you thought, this could have done it? Was there anything close?
So I think before I get into that, part of what we discussed was at length, and it might sound really odd to people kind of not in the industry. We spent a good amount of time talking about what is outdoor, which when you're sitting here and in the sun and sweltering in the sweltering heat seems like a pretty obvious thing, but the categories evolved so much over the last few years that it's boundaries are really blurring. There's a massive gray area between what you would call ambient work and what you would call traditional billboards. I think probably one of the reasons why Liquid Billboard ended up with the top prize is it's kind of traditional but also kind of not. It sort of maybe sits at an intersection of those sorts of areas where from where out-of-home advertising has been and where it's kind of going to. But sorry, what was the question again?
Just what was coming close.
Oh, coming close. Yeah. So yeah, one of the things that was coming close, I know my point now. One of the things that was coming close was something that wasn't a billboard, but a really emotive use of out of home. It was a piece for Cadbury in Malaysia that, funnily enough, initially wasn't on the shortlist. The jurors are each, so 10 people in the room, you're each allowed to nominate one piece of work that, as I said, it's kind of, you think might have slipped through the cracks that you saw in your first round of judging. And someone nominated this piece, and everyone kind of liked it. And then the more we watched it in the various rounds of judging as we went up discussing bronzes, silvers, golds, it went up and up and up, and love for it grew and grew and grew to the point where it was in possible contention for the big prize. So what it was, to describe it, it's in Malaysia during the lockdown, people were, horrible thing was happening. People were not being supported by the authorities, by the government. They were at the point of giving up, so much in despair that they were putting hanging white flags out of their homes to say, I give up, I can't help myself anymore, there's nothing more I can do, I'm desperate. So what Cadbury did is introduced a scheme called Flags of Generosity, and they distributed these flags that were in the iconic purple color of Cadbury's dairy milk, in store across the country. And what people who wanted to help those in need could do is display the purple flag of generosity in their homes, and then Cadbury would kind of bridge the two, would go to the homes of people who were willing to help, collect food, medicine, etc., and distribute them to those who were in need. So we just loved it for a couple of reasons. It just felt completely connected to the glass and a half, sort of generosity message that brand has always stood for so long. But I think probably the main reason we loved it was that they showed restraint. And that's a hard thing for a brand to do sometimes. So the flags were just purple. That's it. They were not branded. There wasn't a big Cadbury logo on it. There wasn't a big message saying, I'm a Cadbury helper. Nothing like that. It was just purple. And I think it could have easily been ruined and cheapened if it had been used as a as a kind of cynical marketing opportunity. It was genuine. It came from a real brand purpose, and yeah, as I said, love for it grew so much that it, in the end, a lot of people felt it might be a contender.
And I think, Keka, we certainly saw projects like that. It was a very similar process for us in 19 on our jury, where we each got to nominate something that we felt was falling through the cracks. And I remember the piece with the sheets, with the stories on the sheets that came from nowhere and rose up the shortlist and ended up with the gold.
I can't remember this one.
From in the Middle East, and there were stories of people who had been abducted.
Amazing.
It's incredible, and it's similar kind of story with people. Oh yeah, it's interesting, but it didn't make the shortlist, and it got bumped up, and I think those campaigns come out because they use out of home as a canvas, not necessarily the belt and braces standard 6 sheets and 96 sheets, but they're using people being outside, being outdoors, doing something, and reacting to it, and using and attaching a brand message to it. In the Cadbury's case, it sounds perfect.
And this shortlist process is hard for some ideas. Some ideas you need more time to understand the context. This example is one that we need to discuss, to understand, to spend the time there talking about. And sometimes our role as a jury is something like that. We need to give more time for this idea to really understand. And
maybe you need to set along a local ambassador every time to just do a preemptive.
I think what was great was the Cannes organizers had, in the jury briefing sessions beforehand, did a really great job of saying, Cannes has traditionally, by and large, awarded kind of Western-centric work. So as you go through all the hundreds or thousands of pieces of work during shortlisting, and there's a lot to get through, just be very conscious of work that's not from your culture, not from your region, case studies that might have been put together by people who are speaking English as a second language, that sort of thing. Just give them a little bit more room to breathe, take some time to really understand them, and you might find there's something really amazing there. There were a few in our category that were like that. They weren't necessarily the most polished, slick case study, but when you sat with them and kind of understood the message, they were pretty amazing.
It's funny because sometimes you look at stuff exactly and you go, it's a visceral thing you feel with humans. And I were looking at that swimming pool, I'm interested straight away just because of the colours and stuff, and then it's beautifully told. So it is both in a way, because there's nothing worse than a brilliant idea but not properly explained, and that is where we were talking earlier and last night about the absolute skill of the case study film, and now more than ever that's your pitch. That's if I know nothing about these 2,000 entries from around the world. Oh, I've got a little bird there. I wanted to, Dan and I want to move on a bit to slightly less overly debated topic, maybe your favorite ever Cannes billboard. We always ask this question on the main billboard pod anyway, but we wanted to kind of put it as a Cannes thing. So we've banged a few up there. We don't know whether those are any of your favorites. So over to you guys. What are your favorite Cannes billboards?
Mine is not there. I don't have a doubt about it. I love the iPhone campaign. For me, it's the way you use show the feature of the iPhone and understand the environment and create this art collection through the city. For me, it's a amazing campaign. Super simple. The logo is like this, and the feature of the iPhone is the main subject, and what this feature delivers. Amazing photos, and I love this campaign.
For me, it sort of depends what day you ask me, because there's such a great sort of pantheon of incredible billboards over the years. Right this moment, maybe because this image came up, I'm a huge fan of the Magic of Flying British Airways billboard. Just the moment I saw it, I just thought, I hate them. That's just amazing. It's perfect. I love that it makes me feel something for a brand that I hadn't necessarily felt something for quite a few years. And I love that it's a fusion of technology and humanity. Really, really lovely piece of work. Wish
We
I'd
left
done it.
yours.
And yours?
Mine.
Yeah, that's yours.
Mine is actually Carlos. He won the Grand Prix for this one, and we've just interviewed Guy Moore, the McDonald's campaign from Cosette in the US, which was using roadside billboards to direct people off the freeway to the local McDonald's. In the most interesting use of the McDonald's logo, and I know it was a struggle to get it through with the client, but that I think that's a really good use of outdoor because everything was had local context. So each one was slightly different, whether it was turn round or off at the next exit. This uses outdoor for context and design purpose. I think that is definitely.
And the message, it's like a sign. Amazing.
I mean, one thing I wanted to say was I can't believe there's so much fast food stuff. And when I was younger, it really wasn't a great award winner. I remember KFC before it went to BBH. It really wasn't, and now it's massive.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, there was a winner in this year, a gold winner. That was. We were also very aware there was a lot of. It just happened that some of the best ideas, happened to be in that category. So, we weren't specifically trying to choose, one automotive, one fast food. That's just not how the process works.
Yeah.
You just choose the best ideas, and that category seems to generate a lot of good stuff. But there was a winner called Non-Artificial Mexico. It's very traditional, but also very non-traditional in the sense that they went against so many conventions of the fast food category.
Right.
Where it's a little bit like Moldy Whopper did. There are so many conventions around it where you have to show the food looking perfect, looking incredibly edible at all points, and they just shot things very naturally. Went around Mexico and just shot people sort of eating the products in a very messy way. Fat people eating fast food. Can you imagine a fast food client, getting kind of? It was fantastic.
No, we read about that. We were going to include it. I mean, my one actually isn't here, which is a bit of a schoolboy error. But I've just been thinking. I remember as a kid, was a kid in advertising, but the McDonald's sundial, and everything about it, I was annoyed, like you, really, really annoyed. It was beautiful. It was like a piece of art. We had them on the show, the guys. We did a remote call with them, and they had so many brilliant stories. They had to speak to a NASA scientist. The levels of work they went into. I mean, I read a bit more about some of the stuff that Daniel did for Harvey Nichols. I spent it on myself. I hadn't actually told you this, but he was telling me how Daniel had to go and buy a load of gravel and tell the client how to package it up. And when you hear all that, you go, you got to win. So the sundial for me, because it's so simple, but then when you hear about how much craft they put into it, it's, I mean, there's so many favorites. I don't know if there's anyone want to shout out any of their favorite. Say again.
The Women's Aid billboard shot by Rankin with the
the interactive one. Yeah, with the bruises.
Yeah.
Look at me, wasn't it? Yeah. Yes, it's amazing. Any more? Andy?
Bonnie, you must have one. Come on, favorite winner.
I was going to go BA.
Andy Bird at the back. Let's ask him.
You put your own ad in?
That's not mine. That's Mexico.
I'm on the spot. I think that Evian. I remember that. That's a great campaign there.
Evian.
And of course, and Expedia.
Yeah. Expedia actually. John's not here. He was telling me he's coming. He was going to have a beer, but it's a real grower. That the Expedia one with the labels. He said him and his partner were in an airport. They weren't actually working on this, and they saw a label that said "fuck," F-U-K. And it was someone go to Fukushima in Japan, of course. And then he went, that's it. That's the idea. It's just brilliant. Everything about it is great. So, okay. So we asked Daniel a bit about this earlier. So we probably, again, I mean, I think we've sort of covered it, but I don't know, any tips or, anything we can learn?
I think one tip is a subject that you mentioned about how we tell the story. Craft the video story for me it's essential because it's so important, the idea, the craft of the idea, but how we explain the idea is the difference between win and lose. For me, it's super, super important. This is my tip.
My tip was sort of slightly nicked by Daniel earlier, but I was going to say something very similar about the minute I find in my career, the minute you try to try to game the system, try to win awards. It just doesn't happen. The trends are moving so fast. If you try and predict them or try and get ahead of them, you're going to fall behind. Actually, just do great work on the best briefs you have, without trying to target particular categories or subcategories, anything like that. It just never works out. The other thing, having just gone through the judging process, specifically for out of home, the jury can kind of tell when out of home is incidental to the idea or when it's really central. So there was, again, a lot of debate around that. When we love an idea, we watch a compelling case study video, we keep having to ask ourselves, do we really love the idea? Is there a PR idea at the heart of this? Is the direct idea at the heart of this? Or is there an outdoor idea at the heart of this? So we made sure that with the big winners, outdoor was really central. There was a fantastic piece from Brazil, actually, called the Refugee Jataba, which is amazing, which there was a lot of debate around that topic, where it's a fantastic PR idea of essentially it's a Save the Amazon sort of idea in which a tree applies for refugee status to different embassies because as a living being it's apparently allowed to. So incredible kind of goosebump inducing idea. But the reason we awarded it was the embassies said no, and the only way they could get their attention was via an incredible outdoor stunt. So they created this incredibly crafted billboard in the middle of a city that essentially brought the Amazon into the city, and it was a burning tree, kind of special build thing that showcased the letter that was pleading for asylum from the tree. A really, really beautiful piece.
One of the things that I think for the outdoor world is super powerful. Obviously, it's unskippable. It's out there in the public. When you put a poster up there, it's real. It's it's part of the fabric of our environment. And I think if you're going to win an award for a piece of work that goes very public, and while people are going out doing other things, driving their car, going to work, going to school, you have to do something that stops people in their tracks and gives them that message. And it's got to happen really quickly. This is nanoseconds. I'm not sure if it was the same for you guys for the first few days of jury service, but you had the big portfolios with all the print work in, all the posters in. And you flick through them and you've got this little scan gun and you give it a scoring. It's a scoring system. But we were going through posters and billboards at the time, and it gets you straight away. The good work elevates very, very quickly because it's been art directed really well. It's obviously a simple idea, and you're looking at a single frame, and sometimes you're looking at it only a matter of seconds, but it stands out. And I think if you're creating content or creating posters or creating digital posters for outdoor, is keep that idea really simple and make sure it's art directed and written really well, and it will do well naturally.
Very good point about written very well specifically, because we did notice as a trend in our category that the quality of writing wasn't always there. That people sometimes had an incredible idea, but the writing let it down. The line was really clunky. It wasn't elegantly kind of explained. And when that sort of happens, especially when you're trying to appeal to a jury of people who've been in the business for a long time and kind of experts in their field, you just feel slightly disappointed, and then you end up not elevating those pieces because you feel they didn't quite go the extra mile to make those things as perfect as they could be.
Okay, we're going to let our hair down a little bit now. You don't have to answer this question, by the way, if you don't want to. I'm trying to think. So I'm going to tell you, these are like your best Cannes stories. This was last night. That's Dan in my swimsuit. And that's me on my boat on the right. Daniel Fisher he's not here, but I really want to quickly tell his story because it's brilliant. So I'll sort of live vicariously through his story. But he won a gold for the Sunday Times Rich List. And I don't know if you remember it. It's the size of the person is indelibly linked to the amount of money they earn. And as one guy's massive, one person's small, one person's quite medium. And Johnny Hornby, who had his yacht, said, we're going to blow it up really big, put it on the yacht and get him to come out because he lives around the corner. I can't remember his name, this guy. But he came on and said, do you know what? I should be the biggest person, but I've got better accountants than all the others. So, and it's just like, fantastic. They win, they go on a yacht, they meet a guy. So, I mean, I could talk a bit about what I got to when I won a gold with my partner a few years ago, but I'd probably lose my marriage and get arrested. Dan, what about you? What's your best Cannes story?
Yeah. Other than today, actually, you know, the jury service year I think is my favourite year at Cannes, and it's because you get to hang out with such amazing people for a long period of time, and they lock you in the room. But it's also, I think, those stories of the midnight pizzas and all that stuff. That kind of lives there as the kind of it felt like a long time, but I think that's the story for me. I made great friends on the back of it, and I think that's been. My favorite.
I agree with you, Dan, because that time was my second time as a jury, and my first experience was not good. In 2006, I was the only woman in the room, and I see after, I don't know, many years after I had the second opportunity to be in a jury, and was super amazing environment. To everyone was respectful to give our opinion in that room in a very friendly way, and I believe in this new way to judge faces in a very collective, open mind, and for me, I agree with you. It was amazing.
I think I've maybe got two. One is to join the love-in. I agree. Like the judging this year has been easily one of the highlights of my my career. Just to be in a room with like-minded people, but also people with diverse perspectives, and just chatting things through and seeing things in a different way than you necessarily would have thought of them. There was a lot of changing of opinion as people spoke passionately about different pieces of work, which was, I think, a sign of a good jury. There was no one really being completely entrenched. Everyone was open-minded to hearing different thoughts, and I think we all got on really, really well. So that's the positive one. The sort of darker side is maybe about 10-ish years ago. So I was working in South Africa, and it's a big deal for South African agencies to send creatives out to Cannes. Big deal because of the exchange rate. It's very expensive. And there was a guy in our group who desperately wanted to come because he thought he had a real contender, and he was desperate to win. And all week he was just waiting. You know, it had won at the local awards, and Cannes was the thing he really always wanted to achieve. Every night went by of the festival. Shortlist, nothing. Shortlist, no conversion. Shortlist, no conversion. Eventually, finally, on the last day, the last night, he won a gold and was just absolutely over the moon. He was holding the thing like a baby, walking along to the closing gala, literally cradling it. And we were all getting some drinks, and we were sitting around it. And then maybe an hour later, for the first time in the whole night, he decided, you know what, it's getting a bit heavy. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put it under a table. 2 minutes later, turned around, line was gone, and he never found it again.
Then he spent 2,000
Yeah.
euros.
He has the photos to remember it.
Yeah. He's got the moral victory, I suppose. Yeah, he won.
But he won.
Well, we're going to have to say goodbye one after the other because of the microphone thing. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for everybody listening. And we've had a great time. Keep listening. We're going to probably maybe do something like this in the UK, maybe visit agencies and do quick Q&As. So this is the start of something maybe new for us, but it's been brilliant. Dan?
Yes, thanks for coming. Thanks again to Talon for sponsoring us. They've all started on the rosé already. And a big thank you to Jon, who's silent Jon. He's not allowed to talk, but he's always doing our editing and our all of the tech. So yeah, big thanks to Jon, and obviously to our two guests.
Thank you. Super amazing time here with you and you.
A round of applause for our panel, please.
Thanks, guys. Always love chatting to you.
Thank you so much. See you soon.